Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshee.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshee. I am so excited. I'm so delighted today to be joined by Katina Tarver. She is a singer, a songwriter, and author. She's working on some amazing projects that really deal with health and wellness in our community. So I'm really excited to hear about that and to let you all learn about what she's up to. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Lewis. I appreciate you having me on for your show.
Sure. And delighted to have you for sure. I wanted to talk a little bit about like your upbringing, because one of the things that struck me was that early on when you were thinking about music, your family really was influential in saying, let's not get too secular. So talk to me about some of your musical influences and sort of how you headed down that road in your community.
Absolutely. So yes, my upbringing we were very spiritual, growing up in my home. But everyone in my family is musically inclined. My mother, my father, my brothers, sisters. So we grew up in church. And because of that, everything that we did that consisted of music was about church. It was nothing outside of that unless it was anything pertaining to church. So when I was offered opportunities from other music industries, such as some of the major record labels that presented themselves to me, I was unable to accept them because at the time my mom, I would say my parents, but my mother most. I love my mother to death. And we have a great relationship, but she was one of the ones that were like, okay, no, you got to stay in school. And if it's not church or gospel, then, you just can't do it. So that was one of the roadblocks I had growing up as far as branching into the music industry early on. But even with that, I still was able, I still did quite a bit. I did eventually sing at conventions and weddings and other organization events and things like that. So I did get a chance to do things outside of church, but it wasn't until I became a little older and more independent with my decision making where I was able to do a little bit more and branch out.
Sure. And I wanted to talk about some of those early experiences because I know you're very modest and kind of glossed over them, but I mean, for some people, they would just be this amazing dream come true. First, if I'm not mistaken, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were interested. Just tell us about like how that like meeting or interaction occurred and what went down.
Actually, it was through someone that actually worked for I think it was a radio personality. It was a late night. I'm trying to think of, it was either Smooth Storm or something. I can't really remember exactly.
Quiet Storm, maybe.
Quiet Storm, yes. So he was one of the late night hosts for the radio show at the time. And it was through him because he knew a few of my family members. So I met him and he was the one that kind of introduced me to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. But again, it was one of those things where no, if it wasn't singing in church, I wasn't able to do it. And it was funny about that is at the time, my older brother, was in the music industry and he was doing quite a bit in the community and neighborhoods, working with some local and major artists. He was the one that kind of took me a little bit under his wing and, kind of introduced me to some of the people then. So I was able to get a little bit more experience working with people outside of church in the music industry. But yeah, so it was kind of difficult because, we had to, go against mom and dad and church to do something outside of that. But yeah, I was still able to branch into the industry and did quite a bit of work.
No, absolutely. And then if I'm not mistaken, you interfaced with Babyface and their record label too.
I did. Actually, what happened with that, so this was later on in my years.
Right.
I was at the time signed to a management company, but at the time I was also with a male group. So I was the only female in a 3 male group.
Right.
And when my manager at the time, she presented us, and I flew out to LaFace Record and actually interviewed with a couple people there, met some of the artists. But when they contacted her, they did not want the group.
Right.
They wanted just me as a solo artist. So that became a problem because she wasn't going to let me just branch out without the group. So that was another, issue I ran into, which could have been a great opportunity at the time.
Right.
But because of, the contract and management deal, I was not able to do that at the time. So I kind of learned a lot over my years.
Right. Sounds like it. And I just want to tease out those two experiences because I think they highlight things that several people may not realize that happen in the industry. First, sort of having a potential dream come true of being able to meet, artists as big as, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the number of awards, the amount of artists they've written for, the legendary status they had, was well even appreciated, at that time early on. And sort of how you transitioned with that just on a personal level, because I think so many times some people may feel like their world has come to an end, especially if their parents are saying you can't do this. I think it might be different if it came, from the industry itself. It still might be hard, but parents, many times people may feel like, oh, they just don't know and they don't understand. Like, this is my big moment. How did you really navigate that on a personal level?
So it was challenging. It was growing up because I knew that there was so many opportunities I could have had. It wasn't that I resented my mother or anything, or even my manager at the time. I didn't resent them, but it does cause you to kind of have a little bit of disappointment and somewhat of depression, because it's like, okay, I can't seem to move forward because I have all of these people, holding me back. And it's like at that time, and I've even worked with some people that kind of felt, to this as well, where they feel like, okay, well, this is my opportunity and I might not get another opportunity because this has come and gone. And you hear that a lot in the industry. Oh, you have a once in a lifetime opportunity, you got to take it. Right. But then when it's not at your choice, and it's out of your hands, it becomes difficult, right. It becomes difficult. But in saying that, knowing that I was still young, and I did still have years that I could spend in an industry and meeting other people and moving along in my career, I just kept that at the focal point to say, okay, yes, this was an opportunity, but there will be more, whether it's this road or maybe another road. But I'm going to do my music. I'm going to do my music because I love what I do. Other people, I love doing it for other people. I love that they enjoy my music, and this is a passion of mine. So one way or another, I was gonna get to that goal, but it causes you to kind of have to change different directions, which is what I had to do in my life. But again, I didn't resent anyone. I was disappointed, and it was heartbreaking because I felt like it was a setback. Right. But I still moved forward with what I wanted to do with my career.
Right, absolutely. And then the same type of thing with management, I wanted to tease that out a little bit as well, because it's so difficult to find a manager, and in this case, finding a group and work and things like that. Probably one might guess that at the time you had no idea that you might be interested in joining an organization like LaFace Records, and then when that opportunity presents itself, oh my gosh, something that I may have said or done, months ago, maybe even perhaps it was longer, now it's acting as a handcuff because I've essentially signed that I can't break the group. And we see that happening a lot, where they often try to pull a lead or pull some key member from the group, right. And it can cause a lot of animosity.
Yes.
How did you work through all that?
Well, because it didn't really happen as far as the group is concerned, we all still remained, close, good friends. And these were actually guys that I actually went to high school together. So we knew each other very well. Sure. but it was a strain. It became a strain after that because that was the only opportunity we actually got working with this manager.
Sure.
So after that, things kind of was not the same. However, I will say this one thing though. Um, Later on, while I was with this manager, I don't think I even pointed this out in the initial information,
Right.
but I did have another opportunity that came up, and this wasn't about the manager, but I had another opportunity to actually perform in Germany.
Right.
But this was, but right around the time I got that offer to perform a year in Germany, um, I found out I was pregnant. So
Oh,
this was another one with my daughter. And when I found that out, she did mention it to the people, in Germany, and then they kind of turned it down because they said they wasn't going to cover, have insurance to cover someone on stage to perform. So I felt like, okay, this was another opportunity that could have been controlled on my behalf, but the timing again was just off. And I know that I'm sure there's many people that can relate to that, especially when you're trying to be in a music career or a career, and
right.
then something like that happens.
Sure. No, absolutely. Yes. No, we've talked to people right there who got dropped or released, or an album got shelved, and by the time things got caught up again, they simply just didn't move forward. What elements or what advice might you give to some artist that is moving up or wants to move into the business, and that may face these same sorts of things where an opportunity just seems to be a once in a lifetime chance, and yet for whatever reasons it may be, they have to kind of realize that it's not meant for them and it doesn't work out? How do you recommend that people cope or adapt or accept these realities, even though they can be harsh?
Right. I always tell people, if you have a passion for music, don't stop, with that passion. I mean, because again, like I mentioned before, sometimes the path might change. Life happens, life can get in the way, and sometimes those things are out of our control. But that doesn't mean that it's the end of all, that doesn't mean that you can't still have a successful career in the music industry. Um, I just always tell people, just continue to stay the course, even though you might have some blocks along the way, but never lose hope. Stay working for one, if you are recording, continue to keep recording. Continue to market yourself, build your connections, just keep doing the things that are necessary to that you're going to need in the industry in and of itself. And then once you get to the point to where you are able to move even further along in your career, then you do those things. Because for some people, it could be financial, issues. It's not that you can't do it. And my motto is never can't. I don't use that term.
Yeah.
Right. So my motto is always, it's not that you can't do it. It's just how you go about doing it. And you set your path and plan a way that's what I had to come to realization in my life, in my path. And that's what I kind of share with other people, because it can be challenging, but if this is what you love to do, you're gonna do it regardless.
Right. Do you feel it was your faith that anchored you, your family? What helped you in those sort of sadder, lonelier moments where you had to, press on despite some disappointment?
I did have a supporting family. I did. Eventually, my mom did come around later on in my life, where she was a little bit more lax on me branching more into the industry. Because when I did start off in my music industry career, I started with gospel, but then I branched over into the circular music as far as R&B, which is what I am now, R&B recording artist. So she did become a little bit more lax. So she was supportive. All of my family have been supportive. I would say my brother along the way was the most supportive. because he was in the industry, and it was easier to kind of work with him and hang around him around the studio, record, studios, and meeting other, different people, and watching him perform and performing with him and others. It was a little bit easier. So I would say out of everyone during those times, he was my biggest supporter. So yeah, I mean, I've always had support, but for me, as far as doing the work, I still had to be the one to do the work. So I had to make sure I kept my mind in a positive manner, where this is what has to be done. I have to make sure that I am on top of my things so that I can continue to move on, whether, it's tiring, because at the time I was also working a job, I was doing, music, I had children, later on in my life. So it's like I had all of these things to juggle. And I know many people in the industry are juggling many things like that, trying to balance a music career, having families, and, working a job for some who need the financial stability. So yeah, I mean, I've been there, and I understand what that looks like. So it's just keeping the mindset to say, you know what, I'm going to do what I have to do to make sure that I can be flexible to allow myself to do all these things without burnout.
Yes.
So allowing the balance of life and work. So that was what was most important to me.
Would love you to maybe set up a song that you enjoyed making, and just telling us a little bit about what the song means to you.
Okay. So I will talk about So Much to Give. That's one of the ones that I did record and also did a video for. That song really didn't have any significant reason to it. It was just one of the songs that I wanted to do because it's a sensual song. And I think it was more so tied to what I was feeling at the time, because I wanted to put something out for Valentine's Day. So I wanted that sensual type of song where couples could actually listen to the song and dance to, and have it, as a romantic dinner or a moment in Valentine's time. So that's what I was really preparing that song for. And as an addition, the two ladies that are actually in the video with me are my sisters.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think there's something like that.
Yeah, so they're my sisters, and they were performing in the video with me. And again, all of them do sing, both of them sing. And I think my brother is actually in the video as well, him and his wife, and they were, so it was, I wouldn't say it was a family affair, but I did have family in there.
Sure, right. Got them doing those cameos. All right, let's listen.
Baby, what you craving? The menu is open to you daily. Oh, yeah. You can have it all, no need to share. Anything you want is standing there. Come and write your name on it if you want it. Would you mind if I take time to take your heart to carry? If I take your
and the other song I would say would be More Than a Lady. Okay. And that song I think would be more geared towards the women who feel like guys, come to them and they only looking for one thing, they only see what they look like. I myself have experienced that. So I felt like this would be a great song for a woman empowerment, Yeah. I'm more than a lady. I'm more than what you see. You get to know me so that so that we can actually have something good, as opposed to you coming to me, asking me for my phone number based on what I look like. Right. Get to know me, because I'm more than what you see.
Right.
And that's what that song was about. And I actually did that song a while back for an event, and all of the ladies were cheering. And so it was, yeah, it's like, yes, that's what I'm trying to tell it. Yeah, so I would say those two songs were my most latest. And I'm proud of those two songs. So
Absolutely. Let's take a listen.
What do you see when you look at me? I'm more than a lady. What do you see when you look at me? Brains, beauty, body. What do you see when you look at me? I'm more than a lady. What do you see when you look at me? 'Cause you don't really know me complete. You see me walking by, ask me for my number. Why take a chance, you say, when I know it's all a game? So why you wanna waste my time, knowing one thing's on your mind? I appreciate when you know more than my name.
Frame this section with this almost age-old debate in our community. Where do you feel that the tension between the gospel world and the religious community, which many of us come from that family upbringing, lies with respect to the secular world? Because it certainly seems that whether it's a fear that you'll be taken away from me, like literally, because you'll be under other people's influence, or under people's influence that don't necessarily have your best intentions in mind, or potentially under influence of substances. These seem to underlie a lot of the stories of many of the greats who ventured out, and some returned the gospel, Al Green. Others, went more secular and would dabble a little bit here and there with gospel, like Whitney Houston. They have others, like Aretha Franklin, who started out strongly in the church, and it was clear that was always very important to them, but still they went out on the road.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, as far as the gospel side, it's a little bit more stringent, because you have a lot of people that are, biblical based, and everything is, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't serve two masters. And, that's what a lot of the older people looked at. And it kind of transpired into some of the younger generations as to, okay, well, you can't sing secular music and sing in church as well, or you just can't do the two. You just don't mix. So it becomes challenging when you're trying to have a career as an R&B artist or pop artist that doesn't include the gospel scene, where it becomes a thing where you have a little support from the people in the church. But I will say this, what I have noticed over time, a lot of that has changed.
Yes.
For one, primary reason is because a lot of the music has become crossover in a sense.
Right.
And it's been a little bit more acceptable, which is actually going back to when I first started out in the gospel as a gospel artist. That's most of the music that I did. Right. It wasn't strictly, gospel, it was crossover music, sure. But it still had the premises of, church, gospel. Okay. So that's a lot of what has been going on today's music, a lot of crossover music, unless you're just, strictly gospel. So it made it a little easier, even like some of the greats, like you mentioned, Aretha Franklin, Al Green, that kind of transferred easily into the circular music of R&B and soul, because it was so similar. Right. And it was easier to do that crossover into, the different music.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I know, again, that you are very modest, but you have an amazing nomination. So tell us about how that came about and the story behind that.
Okay, so my Grammy nomination came from my album, Can't Keep a Sister Down.
Right.
That was,
You've done a great build
and
up for that.
yes, exactly. And that's where that came from. I'm gonna keep my motivation. So that
Wow.
was my title track. But yeah, it came from my my album during the time. And since then I've recorded singles and just kind of released some singles and yeah, just kind of stay relevant. But yeah, that's where that came from. Um, and during that time I was under another company called Casino Brown Music. And that was past, in my past relationship, with back then, we were kind of partners in that. He was a recording producer and engineer. And I was, of course, the vocalist. So it was a lot of us moving in the industry and, just kind of working.
Right.
And that's where that Grammy nomination came from, me putting out that first album. And that was actually it was not only local, but it was also overseas. And we had a lot of stores contacting us, requesting us to send over the product, to sell overseas. So it was well, it was nice.
Sure.
It was nice.
And I'm sure that was quite a surprise as well as an honor. It wasn't necessarily something that you knew might come through.
Yeah, it was really a surprise. And that was one of two, because I actually received another nomination for Indie R&B Album of the Year.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. Now, as we transition to some of the things you're doing now, education's always been very important to you, and you continue to study throughout. And tell us about where that's taken you in terms of like health and wellness.
Okay. So my background in education, or I would say schooling, so I do have a bachelor's degree in psychology and my master's in mental health and wellness counseling, and now currently in my doctoral program for behavioral health. So a lot of that coincides with not only the music, but also just the life coaching and mental health and wellness coaching. And that's kind of where things have kind of started to join together in a sense. I have a lot of clients that I work with as far as a vocal coach and songwriting coach that come to me for voice lessons that usually ends up leading over into other areas as far as the life coaching or mental health coaching or consulting. So they usually go hand in hand, and people always ask me, well, how is it that you manage, to balance all of those things? I say, well, because they kind of work together. Right. People in the music industry that I've found, even now, even more so, have become more challenged with the mental health aspect. Yes. And as of 2 years ago, actually last March is when I launched my first performance for some of the students that I work with on the music, kind of helping them kind of transition or work through like performance anxiety, right, stress management, social anxiety, because these are some of the challenges that some of the students that I was getting that were they were struggling with. Yes. And I decided to have this platform for them and other students to give them a place to showcase their talent and also working through a lot of the mental issues, that they were having at the time. And that's something that I plan on continuing on a yearly basis to give my students a platform to help them work through some of their mental challenges. But me, as having the background in mental health and wellness, that's not the only thing that I have actually done. I've actually partnered with some after school programs where we actually did group sessions for teens and their families. And I also work with individuals. So that kind of leads up to what the project is that I'm working on now, as far as launching the community organization for teens, for at-risk teens and their families, to be launched later this year. Because I've been, again, so involved with the schools and the community that I thought that this would be really, really relevant to be able to have an outsource for the schools within the community to kind of help with some of these children and taking a more proactive as a reactive approach for them. Because I know that, as many of us know, since COVID, a lot of our teens have become even more challenged mentally with mental and wellness. And I just feel like it's just really necessary and relevant in today's time to be able to have those things for them. And in addition to launching the support groups and the mental side of it for the community center, I'm also going to be offering enrichment programs for these teens and young adults, in areas as far as medical field, doctorates, nutrition, in the music as well, whether that be vocal, drums, guitar, just to kind of give them a platform to say, there is a way for me to come out of my situation and actually look forward to becoming better. Because one of the things I did find challenging for a lot of the teens was that they felt like there was no space for them. There was no progression for them. Either they're coming from a low income family home, or you have parents that might be struggling on drug abuse and things like that, and these teens feel like, I have nowhere to go. This is my family background. This is my area. This is where I am. So how do I get out of this and actually live and progress in my life where I would like to be? So it's just giving them an opportunity to show them that you do have opportunities. You do have, people that care and is here to support you along the way of your path, to keep them from feeling like my only recourse of action is to become a behavior problem, because, I have nothing else going for me. Sure. And that's what I've heard a lot from a lot of the teens in schools. And I just feel like that this platform will be great for them and their families.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just think it's so wonderful what you're doing. And because so many times we talk about the problem, or we describe awareness of it, but we don't really, certainly at least understand it, because I don't think we can try to solve or address something we don't understand. So on that note, what are some of those key things, and you hinted at one already, that they may not feel like they have a place in this world, so to speak, or an escape in a way to express their voice, are some of those unique challenges that young people face, today, like you said, sort of coming out of COVID, during COVID, with respect to mental health, because it's certainly on everybody's minds and lips, and even, songs and music.
Mm-hmm. So I would say one of the things that I've found most challenging is the teens or even younger children getting caught up in the stigma of, well, you're just a behavior problem. You just, so, we're just going to toss you aside. We're going to send you to detention, or you're going to send you to the principal because you're just a problem child. Yeah. But a lot of what I've found is that those behavior problems stem from something. And I get it, these teachers, they are already having a large number of students that they're dealing with in their classrooms, and it's kind of hard to maintain 20-something students and trying to, focus attention on each one of them. But I do believe, even though I understand that there are online resources where these teachers can be educated, I believe that bringing that into the schools, and this is one of the things my community center plans to also incorporate, to be able to have that and offer that to teachers at a in-person approach, where they can actually get the hands-on understanding of what these mental health issues look like. Everything is not, you have ADHD, even though that is a case, but everything is not, your child is hyper, so, we're just going to slap the label of ADHD on them, or, your child is having, just behavior problems, just be a behavior problem child.
It's explosive.
Right. So a lot of times what usually happens and what I've found in working with a lot of the teams is that that have those challenges is that they're struggling with some things at home. And it could be where they feel like, mom or dad is working all the time, so they can't really express what's going on with them at school, or any other challenges that might be going on in the home, or they feel like they're at school and they want to be able to express what's going on with them in school, but then they don't have anyone that they can really talk to about that. And then I know the counselors in schools are overwhelmed as well. So they do what they can for a lot of the kids, but it's just that the students feel like they're so split in a sense. Mm-hmm. So they become complacent to where it's like, okay, I'm just going to take on my problem and try to handle my own problem, which ends up resulting in behavior issues, bad habits as far as smoking and drinking, and just being defiant, because they feel like they don't have an outlet. Right. So being able to have the teens have a platform for them to be able to talk about what's going on with them. And a lot of times, even like some of the girls, the teenage girls, they're struggling with like weight issues, where they start to feel depressed. They fall into this depression or these bad eating habits, where, it just becomes one thing after another. And that's one of the reasons why I felt like coupling my community center with the health part as well. Yes. To be able to examine, okay, is it behavior stemming from the mental health aspect, or is it stemming from a health issue? And that way we're able to do the integrative care and tie the two together and be able to maintain and focus on what the primary source of the issue is, to help eliminate a lot of the behavior problems that come along with either the health problem or the mental health problem.
Right. No, that's very insightful. I think that helps really tease out a question that a lot of people may have in their minds as to how these things germinate and one thing spills over to the other, because people may not realize that we would say kids are sponges, but they're also absorbing sometimes the energy or the challenges in the home, and everyone has different types of challenges, whether they be a privilege or not. It's very rare that we have two-time Grammy-nominated musical artist who is getting ready to complete a PhD in a psychology field. That is, we've had a master's, we've had a few masters, we've even had a few doctors, but to be going into psychology, especially at this particular time and with what you've accomplished. So the question is, what does music and medicine mean to you, literally bridging both of those worlds?
Well, music and medicine to me, I'm sure you've heard this cliche a lot. Some people may say it's a cliche, but music is therapeutic, and it's been therapeutic for many, many people, whether that's singing and songwriting, or it's just listening to music, or it's just being able to enjoy a performance in any capacity. Music and mental health, to me, means that if I am able to write from what I'm feeling in a song, because I'm also a songwriter, and put these things down, I'm not it keeps me from holding these things in my mind and actually looking at them on a piece of paper and getting that connection between the writing and my mind, and to see exactly what my thoughts look like. I like that to me is therapeutic in itself. And then to be able to couple that with a melody, because I'm also, I play piano, so I'm a musician. So to be able to couple that with an instrument, okay, now let me add a melody. What is it that I'm feeling? How do I want these lyrics to feel? Am I sad? Am I happy? Am I excited? Am I depressed? And to be able to couple these things many people don't really realize that what you produce is really a part of you.
Yes.
You know?
People call it a child.
Exactly. It's a part of you. So music and mental health, they both work hand in hand. And I've told someone this recently, because he asked me, he said, well, what is it that, I mean, I don't understand the mental aspect of music. I said, well, okay, you take, for instance, if you're sad, if you're sad, what kind of music do you typically go to look for? You're going to look for music that makes you, that's going to bring out where you are mentally and emotionally. So you're going to look for a sad song. If you're happy, if you're excited, what kind of music do you normally listen to? Something upbeat, something to match your mental and your emotions.
Right.
So it's always going to be coupled with how you feel and what your thought process is at the time. And that transfers into your music.
Sure.
So music, again, if you have someone who's stressed, people listen to music at work many times, just to put their earbuds on, let me listen to me some jazz, because it's going to help me relax.
Right.
Connecting the energy and the neurons into your body to kind of give you that energy of relaxation.
Right.
So it's a therapeutic. It's a therapeutic of both. Music is universal for many reasons, for many different people. And I just think that it's always one of those things that will always be there, because it's going to always be people's go-to to kind of couple with what they're going through during those times, whether that's being happy, being sad, just to be able to express themselves through their music.
Absolutely. I couldn't have phrased it any better. I mean, I really think you made the connection so poignant, and it's so important. And many people do realize it, and they're conscious of it. Some may not be.
Right.
And realize, like you said, that our kids often may be leaning towards it as a way to express themselves or deal with something they're going through, is an important opportunity to help support them in their efforts, but also to also hear what they may be saying through their music. Maybe not
Right.
always, something they can always express vocally, not always have the right words or know how to bring it out without somebody being critical. So
Right.
That's amazing. Where can we find out more about your organization and where you're at?
Okay. So I have my website. It's in-forestmomentum.com. And you can get all of my information right on my website. I do have social media platforms, but a lot of those just kind of redirect you right back to my website. Those are just really informational based.
Right.
So I usually kind of just direct people to my website, because you'll always get information updates that way.
Sure. I love it. And then we'd be remiss if we didn't do a quick shout out to Lee Bush, who put us in touch, which is I just love the connection. I love the work that you're doing. So thanks so much for joining us. I so appreciate having you.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much again for having me.
Absolutely. I just think you made a phenomenal impression on everybody, and really this work that you're doing, literally in terms of getting your PhD in this area and then being willing to selflessly give of yourself to young people in a time of need, and with such a hands-on approach, as you said, couldn't be more timely, and a model that I hope lots of other organizations can also try to follow and emulate. So thanks so much for your being willing to give of your gifts.
Absolutely. You're so welcome.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. Welcome to Music and Medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Moshee Lewis.